Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome into this Thursday. Glad to have you as I'm continuing to struggle with this congestion. And so I apologize again for my voice. Just can't quite seem to get this out. But, hey, we got a lot to cover today, starting with the sad shooting at the Minneapolis Catholic Church yesterday, leaving 2 children dead, 17 injured. Minneapolis police say that the gunman started firing a rifle through church windows during Mass. We have the latest updates on yesterday's tragedy. As expected, Democrat lawmakers are calling for gun control after the Minneapolis school shooting, calling them weapons of war. And speaking of the Democrats, the DNC is still trying to cut loose the ball and chain known as former Vice President Kamala Harris, and things don't appear to be going too well. We have the latest Axios report for you today, and seems like we're kind of focusing on the Democrats today. The DNC says they are looking at maybe changing their presidential primary calendar in 2028 and put South Carolina further down the list, which has Palmetto State Democrats crying foul.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
Folks, I got to tell you, what happened in Minneapolis yesterday is one of the most heartbreaking, infuriating stories that we've talked about in a while. It's kind of the story that makes you sit back, you shake your head, and you wonder what on earth is happening in our country. 2 children are dead. 17 others are injured. Innocent kids sitting in a Catholic school during a back-to-school mass, a place that's supposed to be safe, a place filled with faith, with family, with community, and instead it's turned into a horrible, horrible war zone, if you will. And once again, by a mentally ill young man. Now, Governor Tim Walz offered his sympathy, acknowledging that it will not change the pain the families are feeling right now.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Certainly a day and a news conference that no one wants to be at. A community behind us, Annunciation Church and School, committed to academics, service, and Catholic values, filled with the first days of school of beautiful children going to learn those values, share with their teachers and their classmates. And instead of that joy and that curiosity and that learning, they were met with evil and horror and death. And we often come to these and say, these unspeakable tragedies, or there's no words for this. There shouldn't be words for these types of incidents because they should not happen. And there's no words that are going to ease the pain of the families today. On behalf of all the people of Minnesota, our deepest sympathies. A wish that any of these words would make what you're feeling now better, but it won't.
And he's right, it won't. Here's what we know so far. The shooter was identified yesterday as Robin Westman, born Robert Westman, a 23-year-old young man who had legally changed his name and identified as transgender. It's kind of like, here we go again. And as investigators start to piece together what exactly happened, what's coming out is very disturbing, as you can imagine. It's stuff of nightmares. Video believed to have been posted by the shooter shows weapons, gun magazines scrawled with the words, "Kill Donald Trump," and "For the children." Think about that for a second. Those words written on the very magazines used to slaughter innocent kids inside a Catholic school. And in another video, this one a 20-minute video, the shooter flips through a handwritten journal. In that journal, he fantasizes about being that scary, horrible monster standing over their powerless kids. He openly admires Adam Lanza. Adam Lanza, is the Sandy Hook killer, or was the Sandy Hook killer. He lays out the attack in cold details, writing about how to maximize casualties, how to target the children, and how to carry out as much devastation as possible before being stopped. Now, folks, that's evil. It's not mental illness alone. It's not just acting out. That's evil in black and white. Now, we need to pause and think about the victims. 2 young, innocent kids gone. Families shattered. Teachers, classmates, parents who will never forget the sound of gunfire ripping through stained glass windows at Annunciation Catholic School. Those kids deserve justice. Their families deserve peace, and this community deserves answers. But we also have to face the reality here. And the reality is that this attack was not random. It's not spontaneous. This apparently was planned. It appears to be planned. It was ideologically motivated. It was executed by someone who, in his own words, admired mass shooters and wanted to be remembered in the same way. He was a sick young man who, by the way, was pretending to be a young woman. And yet, what we're hearing from the usual suspects in the media, not a whole lot. Silence, evasion, the story gets covered, sure, but the most disturbing part is the fact that the shooter literally wrote "Kill Donald Trump" on his gun magazines, the fact that he openly admired Sandy Hook, those details get buried. Now, what they want to talk about is gun control. Now, if the words MAGA or pro-Trump had been scrawled on those weapons, the lead would have been a lot different. On every newspaper, in every cable show, on social media, we'd be hearing about the right-wing extremism. But because this doesn't fit the preferred narrative, they try to downplay it. Now, this is why people don't trust the media. And this is why folks turn to the independent outlets and why they listen to talk radio like you are now. So let's talk about the deeper issue. We got a culture right now that's producing broken, angry young people who romanticize violence. A culture that tells kids they're victims, that the system is rigged, that the world is evil. And when you mix that message with untreated mental health issues, online radicalization, and yes, the constant politicizing of everything, you get tragedies like this. And let's not forget, this shooter targeted a Catholic school. And I think that matters. We've seen a disturbing rise in hostility towards religious institutions in recent years. Churches vandalized. Pregnancy centers attacked. Catholic processions harassed. Faith is under fire in America, literally. And I think this is just part of that trend. This young man has probably been hearing this and watching this and believed it. Now, I can already hear the left shouting, "Don't politicize this tragedy." Funny, isn't it? Whenever the facts don't line up with their narrative, suddenly it's "don't politicize it." But if it's a tragedy they can weaponize, they rush to the microphones before the blood is dry. So let's be honest here. We have to confront the fact that this shooter's manifesto contained political hatred, explicit hatred towards the president, Donald Trump. I think that's relevant. That's a piece of the puzzle. We can't ignore it just because it makes some people uncomfortable. And let's also confront the fact that law enforcement says this shooter was not on their radar. No criminal record, no flags, no warnings. I mean, that's kind of scary, isn't it? because it means evil can brew in the shadows without anyone noticing it until it's too late again. So what do? Well, first, we have to grieve the loss of these young people. We pray for the families. We support this Catholic community in Minneapolis. They're going to need some strength, some healing, and some time. Second, we demand honesty from the media, from the politicians, from law enforcement. Don't downplay the ideology. Don't whitewash the details. Tell the truth. If this had been a shooter inspired by Trump or Christianity, the entire country would be forced into a national reckoning. Well, why should it be any different when the ideology is anti-Trump or anti-faith? Because that's what appears to have happened yesterday. We need to look at the cultural right. How many more kids are out there right now sitting in the dark in their bedrooms fantasizing about violence, idolizing mass murderers, mass shooters, writing journals that nobody ever sees? We need to get serious about mental health because this guy purely had mental health issues. We need to get serious about restoring purpose, meaning, and community to young people's lives because if we don't, tragedies like this are just going to keep happening. In fact, what's scary is that there's another young man out there somewhere watching this and trying to perfect what he's about to try to do. And finally, of course, we need leadership, strong, clear leadership, leaders who aren't afraid to say enough is enough, and leaders who want to defend our faith, defend children, defend America, and try to acknowledge that this whole transgender movement is mental illness, and to help these young people, help these young men like this young man who obviously was mentally tormented by his decision and couldn't get any help. He probably had been encouraged rather than saying, young man, we can help you. And that anger obviously had manifested itself. Your comments are welcome. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. America is in a health crisis, and by America, not just strangers across the country. It's personal. Me, you, friends, and family. And a major cause? Excess weight. Joey Hudson here. The solution isn't expensive shots like Ozempic. It's learning how to eat and think about food differently, and that's what PhD Weight Loss does. Their clients lose up to a third of their body weight, no drugs, just real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science to turn your body into a fat-burning machine. Sure, you could spend up to $20,000 a year on injections that burn muscle, not fat, and come with risks like pancreatitis or bowel blockages, only to gain it all back. PhD helps your body naturally produce weight loss hormones like GLP-1s, no shortcuts, just results that last. Already on Ozempic? Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team will help you safely transition off and keep losing weight. Let's make America healthy again. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. Well, as you can imagine, and we always expect this after horrible incidents like yesterday, the Democrats in Washington were back on their soapbox, turning the tragedy into a political talking point. Chuck Schumer, the Senate Minority Leader, led the way. He got online and wrote, "Students and teachers should not be putting their lives on the line just by going back to school. We must do more to stop gun violence in America." He always focuses on the gun violence. Now, he hasn't mentioned the mental health issues that this young man obviously had. The fact that he was confused with his transgenderism, that this young man has been living the life of a young woman because of his confusion, his gender identity confusion. So that didn't play a part in yesterday's tragedy at all. It was the guns, those horrible guns. Then you had Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, calling it horrifying. Well, it was horrifying. It is. And then pivoting straight into the talking point, weapons of war have no place in our neighborhoods, streets, or schools. Again, Mr. Minority Leader, what are we doing to help these young people who are confused about their sexuality to the point that it's literally driving them to these types of tragedies? Now, maybe that's a little extreme. Maybe the fact that this young man was confused about his sexual identity, Maybe that had nothing to do with the shooting, but I got to believe that he probably was struggling with that identity, that he knew deep down. Remember, according to the reports, his mom had worked at this Catholic school. So it has to lead you to think that he has some history in the Catholic school and in the Catholic faith. And he probably was just tormented with the lifestyle choices that he has been taking. Another Democrat from Michigan, Shur Thanender, posted that these tragedies will continue to happen unless we pass sensible gun control. I mean, that's the drumbeat. It's always the drumbeat after these horrific situations. Now, look, again, I don't dispute that this was a horrific, evil act. Nobody's shrugging it off. But the knee-jerk blame the gun response, it's just lazy politics. Because the truth is, this shooter was not some law-abiding gun owner who snapped one day. From what we're learning, this was someone with a twisted fascination for mass shooters, someone who posted sick videos online, who scrawled "Kill Donald Trump" on his magazines. He was obsessed with being that monster over the kids. Not to mention that he was confused about his sexual identity, his gender identity. Now, this was evil. It was targeted. He obviously had spent some time thinking about this, so it was calculated. And yet, what do we hear from the Democrats? Nothing about his mental health. Chuck Schumer, nor Hakeem Jeffries, or any of the other Democrat leaders that I read about or listened to mention mental health. Nothing was mentioned about the radicalization that you can find online, not about why these warning signs were missed. Nope, it's just ban the guns. Ban the guns. Get rid of the guns and all this will happen. It will stop happening. Minnesota Democrats were split. Senator Tina Smith kept it pretty neutral. Just said kids shouldn't have to fear for their lives in school. I agree with that. Senator Amy Klobuchar, though, jumped on CNN and said, if a bunch of kids praying in a church being shot through the stained glass windows by a madman isn't enough to push stricter gun laws like background checks and assault weapons bans, then nothing will. Now, again, she always talks about the assault weapons. I mean, this guy had, what, like a handgun as well, a shotgun? Had multiple guns. Now, here's the problem with that whole argument, though. We've already, we have background checks. We already know that if somebody wants to do this type of evil, they're going to find a way. They're going to find a gun. We already know that there are restrictions. We have some of the red flag laws in some places. But you know what we don't have? We don't have accountability for prosecutors who let violent criminals back out on the streets. We don't have a culture that takes mental health threats seriously. We don't have leaders willing to stand up and say, maybe, just maybe, it's not the law-abiding gun owners who are the problem. Meanwhile, Republicans from Minnesota, like Congressman Tom Emmer, the majority whip, offered what you'd expect. Prayers for the victims, support for first responders, tracking the situation, no quick political grandstanding, no never let a crisis go to waste, just the basics, compassion, and focus on the facts. And here's a deeper point. Every single time a tragedy like this happens, Democrats roll out the same script. Too many guns, too easy access, ban this, ban that. But they never explain how stripping away rights from law-abiding Americans like you and me would stop a determined killer that was hell-bent on targeting kids like this young man was yesterday. This shooter wasn't fooled by weak background checks. He wasn't confused about the law. He wanted to commit murder for some reason, for some disturbed reason. He fantasized about it. He planned it. And he carried it out in the most evil, unimaginable way. And let me tell you this. I mean, that's not something you fix by slapping another restriction on our Second Amendment. That's something you address by confronting mental illness, online radicalization, and yes, by putting security in schools where it belongs, armed protection, real deterrence, because evil like this doesn't care about your gun-free zone. You agree? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. All right, folks, grab another cup of coffee because this one's going to kind of hit you right between the eyes. Axios dropped a story that shows just how much trouble the Democrat Party is in when it comes to money, strategy, and let's just be real here, competence. Now, I know today's show has kind of had a theme about the Democrats. The shooting yesterday had the Democrats literally standing on their heads and once again calling for gun control and all. But the other big headline yesterday was the Democrat Party making a couple of changes. We're going to talk in a few minutes about the presidential primary calendar that they're talking about changing that could push South Carolina further down the line. But right now, I want to talk about their strategy and what they're struggling with in relationship to former Vice President Kamala Harris. You remember her, the 2024 Democrat nominee who ran one of the most expensive, flashiest campaigns in modern political history and got smoked by President Donald Trump. Wasn't even close. She didn't win a single swing state, not one. Now, here we are. It's almost a year later, and the fallout is becoming crystal clear even to the Democrats now because they've been in a fog since last November. They hadn't quite known what to do. The Democrat National Committee has basically been playing janitor, cleaning up Kamala's campaign mess, paying off her debts or trying to, cutting checks left and right. And folks, we're not talking about peanuts here. Axios says that the DNC has shelled out more than $15 million this year just to cover Harris's leftover campaign bills. Now, let me put that in perspective. That's $15 million that could have gone into organizing for midterms next year, protecting vulnerable House seats, or trying to make a dent in the Republican fundraising machine. Instead, it's being shoveled into the black hole left behind by Kamala Harris's presidential campaign. And there's no end in sight. And here's where it gets even more unbelievable. You'd think that Harris, as the party standard bearer, just last year, would be out there raising cash hand over fist to help clean up her own mess. You'd think she'd be headlining massive fundraisers, working the donor circuit, showing gratitude to the party that backed her. According to Axios, nope. She held a few small events. She's let the DNC use her email list, and that's it. And the money raised from those efforts, quote, according to the DNC, disappointing. They're disappointed in the amount of money that they've been able to raise. Well, should that be a big surprise? Think about it. Who wants to continue to shovel their own hard-earned money into this black hole known as Kamala Harris? So let's recap. Kamala Harris raised and spent $1.5 billion, according to reports. That's B with the billion. This was in her 107-day campaign against Donald Trump. That's one of the largest amounts ever spent in such a short window. I don't even know how it's possible, but she did it and made it look pretty easy. And what she did, she has nothing to show for it. None of them do. 0 swing states, They have a more fractured party than ever. And donors are left asking, how on earth do you burn through that much money and not even come close to winning? How's it even possible? And it's a valid question. If I were a Democrat who had written some of those checks, I would be asking the same question. Now, one of her aides told Axios, it seems we lost the national narrative. Well, you think? You're just figuring that out? She lost the narrative, the map, the strategy, the message, and apparently her calculator too. She lost it all and never had a chance. And that's the funny part about this whole thing is they're just now realizing that she never had a chance. And here's the other kicker. Democrats are already pointing fingers. Some of Harris's people are blaming DNC chair Ken Martin for not being focused enough on fundraising. Others are whispering that Harris herself isn't doing enough to help the party dig out of the hole. And the donors, they're looking at the numbers, looking at the midterms and saying, maybe we just sit this one out. Maybe we just throw up our hands and admit that we're going to lose this one. Meanwhile, what's happening over on the GOP side? President Trump's political machine is outpacing Democrats by almost double digits. Double. That's not just a gap. That's a canyon. I mean, let me tell you, and this really shows, Democrats don't know how to run things right now. They don't know how to run a campaign. They don't know how to manage money. And they sure as heck don't know how to govern. Kamala Harris has proven all that. She was their star. She was their chosen one. They poured every resource, every ounce of media hype, and every celebrity endorsement. Remember that? Remember all the celebrity endorsements, all the concerts and all the stuff, the energy that seemed to be building up in those final months or final weeks of last year's campaign. She had all these stars showing up for concerts. Did not help at all. She flamed out in a spectacular fashion. And so now the DNC, they're still paying the price, literally. Millions of dollars going to pay off those charter flights, the media production companies, the law firms, $500,000 here, $2 million there, all to cover a campaign that couldn't deliver a single competitive win. You want to talk about waste? They're getting a little sample of how they waste the American taxpayers' money, aren't they? You want to talk about responsibility? This is it. Democrats love to say they're the party of the people, the party that knows how to handle government, how to manage programs, how to make the trains run on time. Well, look how they ran their own campaign. If you can't manage $1.5 billion in donations, how are you supposed to manage a $7 trillion federal budget? We know the answer to that, don't we? Here's the other thing. Democrats thought Kamala Harris was their ticket to energizing young voters, energizing the minority voters, energizing female voters. They thought she'd be historic, unstoppable, unbeatable. Instead, she was, I heard someone say, uninspiring and unprepared, and I'll say it, unelectable. And now, even in defeat, she's still draining resources from the Democrat Party. And this is where I think Republicans need to pay attention. Because while the DNC is stuck patching up Kamala's broken down bus, Trump and the GOP are building a war chest. They're focusing on 2026 as they should be, and they're focusing on maintaining a majority in the Senate, building on the House majority. They're already campaigning in swing states, already putting boots on the ground. That's the difference between a movement with momentum and a party in disarray and confused. And that's, of course, where the Democrat Party is right now. But let's bring it back to the big picture. I mean, what does this mean to the voters? Well, if you're a Democrat listening right now, and I know there's probably not many of you who are, maybe you have Democrat friends out there, you can offer them some advice. But if you're someone who donated to the Democrat Party, to Kamala Harris, and again, I don't think you're listening to me, but who believed in her candidacy, you got to be asking yourself, where did my money go? And that's the question that so many of those Democrats are asking themselves right now. How was it spent? What was it spent on? Because the results sure don't match the investment. And if you're a big dollar donor, you got to be thinking, Why would I give more money to a party that can't manage their finances, who can't win with those types of resources? Now, if you're a Republican, this should energize you. This is proof that our opponents are not as strong, they're not as organized, and not as unbeatable as the media makes them out to be. Now, it doesn't mean we don't, that we can just ignore them. We can't. We got to take them seriously. But it does mean they're wounded. They're mortally wounded. And let's not forget, Kamala Harris says she's not done. She's got a new book coming out. She's using those same donor email lists to promote it. So instead of pouring her energy back into helping the DNC pay out the debt, she's monetizing her platform for herself. Typical. Self before service. She wants to make a buck. Compare that with the Trump machine. Love him or hate him, the guy's out there rallying, fundraising, campaigning nonstop, not necessarily for himself because he can't run again, but to build the MAGA movement, to build the party, for down ballot candidates to, again, build on that majority in the House, maintain and build on that majority in the U.S. Senate for the America First movement. That, Kamala Harris, is what leadership looks like. That's Donald Trump for you. Now, I got a question for you. If Kamala Harris had been a Republican candidate who lost like this, who spent $1.5 billion and left her party holding the bag, what would the media be saying right now? They'd be calling it the biggest failure in political history. There would not even be any options of a future run. They'd be running nightly specials about corruption, incompetence, and mismanagement. But because it's Kamala Harris, because it's the Democrats, it's just another Axios story buried on a weekday afternoon. Since I'm kind of on a roll with the Democrats today, shall we continue? I mean, because if you thought the left had their act together after their meltdown in 2024, and we've talked about some of that today with the Kamala Harris not being able to raise the money and so on and so forth, the Democrat National Committee is taking it a step further. They're already in chaos, of course. They're not quite sure what they're going to do for 2028. I think they've already pretty much assumed that they're probably going to lose in 2026. But they're looking at 2028 as another disaster. And no, it's not about policy. It's not about inflation or foreign policy or even how to connect with the working class voters right now. No, the DNC is in panic mode about their primary calendar. The most powerful Democrats in the country, evidently, according to reports, are holding backroom meetings about which state gets to go first in their presidential nominating process in 2028. Now, here's what you need to know. In 2024, Joe Biden shoved aside the old traditions. He didn't want Iowa or New Hampshire kicking off the Democrat race. Too white, too independent-minded, I guess, too unpredictable. So he handed the first in the nation crown to South Carolina, a state where black voters dominate the Democrat electorate. And why did he do this? Well, very simple. South Carolina saved Joe Biden in 2020 when his campaign was literally collapsing. Jim Clyburn rushed in, endorsed him. Black Democrats rallied, and that was the turning point. That was the beginning of Joe Biden's win in 2020, if you want to call it that. There's still some debate on that, remember? So in 2024, Joe Biden paid back the favor. He had South Carolina go first, which is a big deal. So now we're looking at 2025. Of course, Joe Biden's out. Trump's back in. And the Democrats are already scheming about 2028. And guess what? South Carolina is no longer a lock to be first. The new DNC chair, Ken Martin, basically said the quiet part out loud. Don't expect us to rubber stamp the same calendar. What does that mean? The Biden order is up for grabs. And here's why. A lot of Democrats think it's ridiculous that the first contest happens in a state that Republicans always carry in the general election. South Carolina hasn't voted Democrat for president since Jimmy Carter. So now they're whispering about maybe moving it to North Carolina, Georgia. I don't know. Why? Because I guess maybe those are swing states, and they're thinking that maybe they can start the race there and energize some of their voters. I mean, let's just call it what it is. this isn't about fairness to the Democrats, to the loyal party holders. It's about trying to engineer outcomes. It's about the Democrat machine picking which voters get to crown their nominee. Now, here's where it gets a little juicy. South Carolina Democrats are furious. Jamie Harrison, you remember him, Biden's DNC chairman, the guy who blew through $130 million to lose to Lindsey Graham. He's screaming that South Carolina better stay first on the calendar. Why? Because South Carolina has been the kingmaker in Democrat primaries for about 20 years now. He pointed out that the state has picked every eventual nominee since 2004. And that's true. They have picked the nominees. Hadn't always picked the winner. And let's not kid ourselves. That's because South Carolina Democrats are heavily pragmatic. They're not progressive activists like the squad. They vote for whoever looks electable, and the DNC loved it that way until now. But now the left is under new management. And guess who's suddenly in charge? Shasti Conrad, the vice chair who runs Washington State's Democrat Party. She's saying openly that the new calendar must prioritize large communities of color. Again, not merit, not fairness, not tradition, identity politics, period. So here's what's happening behind the scenes. Again, according to multiple reports, Nevada wants in. They're making the case that they should go first because they're working class and diverse. They even sent out a memo this week trashing states like Iowa and New Hampshire for being too white and too college educated. Iowa, of course, is threatening to go rogue again. New Hampshire, they're bound by state law to always be first. So unless Democrats want to fight their own voters, New Hampshire is going to keep causing headaches. And let me remind you, this is the same New Hampshire that defied Joe Biden in 2024. They held their primary early, and Biden wasn't even on the ballot. He had to win by write-in, which was a big embarrassment. So Democrats are now trying to strong-arm these states while pretending that this is some fresh process, that they're just kind of reviewing it. But in reality, it's kind of an insider chess match. So you may be asking, well, why does this even matter? Who cares who goes first? Well, it matters because early states, they kind of set the tone. They can make or break a campaign. They shape media narratives. They determine who gets money, who gets the momentum, who even is taken seriously. If you win early, you become viable, just like Joe Biden did in 2020. It helped him get the nomination when he was one of, 15 or 17 or so. If you lose early, you're also toast. Ask Kamala Harris. Go back to 2020. She didn't win. She was out. So by reshuffling the calendar, the DNC is essentially deciding who gets oxygen at an early level, which kind of Democrat wins. And in today's party, that's what the real fight is all about. Is it the pragmatic black voter base that saved Joe Biden, or is it the activist progressive base screaming on Twitter and other social media? So let's step back. This tells you everything you need to know about today's Democrats. You and I already know this. Do they care about gas prices? Nope, they don't. Do they care about border security? Nope, they don't care about that either. Do they care about inflation, crime, or world chaos? Absolutely not. They are spending their energy on whether South Carolina or Nevada gets to be first in line in 2028 in their Democrat primary. That's what they care about. It's an obsession with optics, with identity, with control, and it kind of shows you just how fragile the Democrat coalition is. Because remember, President Trump just passed his massive, big, beautiful bill. He's restored American strength abroad. He's working on continuing to strengthen our border, taxes, energy, name it, win after win after win. Meanwhile, Democrats are still fighting each other about their process, their nominating process. So here's what's going to happen, I think. The DNC's Rules and Bylaws Committees, they meet this fall. That's when the real knives will come out, and there'll be some internal killings probably within the Democrat Party. They'll hold meetings through the fall, winter, maybe even the next spring. South Carolina will fight to try to stay first. Nevada will push to replace them. Iowa will threaten to go rogue. And New Hampshire, well, they'll just do what they want to do because they have a state law that says they have to be first anyway, regardless of what the national party says. In other words, I think the Democrats are headed for a civil war over their calendar, and that's going to divide them. And why is that good news for us? Because they're going to be fighting about their presidential preference primary calendar in 2026 when we're going to be winning congressional races. See where I'm headed here? That's my prediction. They're going to be fighting next year, but within them, their party, and not focusing on what really matters. And that, again, is winning U.S. House seats. That's winning U.S. Senate seats, gaining on those majorities that we already have. They'll alienate South Carolina in the process, the one state that saved Biden's career. They'll try to appease activists. They'll create a mess where multiple states hold primaries on their own, ignoring the DNC. And when that happens, folks, remember this, because it'll be the clearest sign yet that the Democrat Party is not a serious governing party. It's a party of factions run by insiders obsessed with the process while America burns. That's it for today's show. Tara's up next, followed by Mike Gallagher, Bill Frady, Charlie James, and I'm back again tomorrow at 5 a.m. for that first cup of coffee and Sunrise, Carolina. Till then, folks, remember, God's got this. He's still in control. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.